All right. Getting connected always informs is truest in everything that's happening with you guys. It's all levels of calculation. So today in line center interference, you understand how the Agilex works. There's all levels of position locations. We have to understand it's all calculated to modify how we use these audio signals, audio tapes. You need these audio tapes so you can connect to the Agilex. And that's calculated all through the team location, right? If you want to understand the real Agilex, and how this works. It's a program setting for you to understand that calculation because this is what happens when you cross over. Okay, everybody needs to understand that. There's two audio tapes locations that's given to you. All right, so that's how you're all connected. And you also have your positions when you're connected to space, your academies. Do you understand what your academy is? Do you understand where you are in your academies? Do you understand anything that's going on with your academy? Do you understand anything through your memory of your academies? This is the true understanding how you recognize everything through the grounds of the Agilex, the power recognition system location of the Agilex, the layers of the Agilex, the rainbow bridge, and the frost bridge location. Okay, these are the things that you have to look at, right? So in that calculation, everybody needs that. Okay, to understand lines if you want to get more in position what the real Agilex is. Just because you're an angel and archangel, you have to understand the definition of that. How do you understand the process of that? How do you understand to go through the portal of communications of that? This is information given to you, two audio tape locations, right? Coming from all connections. So in that point of view, it's getting you better directions, all right? Getting better information locations, you can go to Zira. She can help you always inform. She sets you up through the audio tape locations, right? This gives you a better understanding how powerful the avatar is and what it's doing for you, not against you. It's working with you. You work as a team. There's no I in team, and I keep saying that over and over and over and over. So the process of communication is trying to stand in what? Going to put you guys through the life and this communication system on the other line centers. Okay. In that position locations, you have to understand all connection. How it works for you is your provision, right? So understanding the avatar is really understanding the adaptation of cycles of life and everything across locations, right? So you'll start recognizing more and you understand why you do these things and why it's important to stay in your own lanes. Okay, a lot of people don't understand what that means. It's because if they're not aware of these things, that's something you need to work on. And that's shadow of self that still needs to be discovered. Okay, it still needs to surface at locations. So understanding that is a process of communication. Then you understand more levels. But do you see through your senses? Do you see what your avatar is doing to yourself or to each other? Because either way, you're manipulating the situation in a good way or a bad way. Okay. Now that's a process that we all have to understand. And sometimes you have to express yourself. Okay. And when you express yourself, you start to feel better because you feel connections offline position or you feel don't connect to anything line connections. And this usually happens when you are recharging at night, right? It's like a sleeping habit. And all of a sudden, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And you get up in the morning and something just doesn't feel right, right? So it's either you doing it to yourself, not understanding, not putting your fields up, right? Your force fields and your E field locations, or it's somebody infiltrating you in the mind system. And that's what we're not aware of. Okay. Energy manipulation goes a long way and always informs. Understanding what it is, it's all process, right? Getting into that calculations, you really, really have to get into that form of understanding. Okay. Especially when you come into levels of the inner light. Okay. You have to come into your discernment. You have to understand your failures. You have to understand how to be humiliated. A lot of people don't understand that process. To understand that is to be successful. To understand that is to be humble. That's surrender. You have to surrender to these things, right? Because if you're exposing others, what are you doing? You're not following your own spiritual growth. You're not following your own spiritual path. You're infiltrating everybody else, but you're not focusing on yourself. You're pointing fingers here and there, doing this and doing that, right? And you're not even aware of these things. But if you're aware of these things, that's where it becomes a problem because you're aware of what you're doing. That's energy manipulation. Okay. So that's the calculations where we have to understand more of ourselves. And the only way to do that is to express yourself. Right. So we will do that after Zoom. In position location calculations, high center. Process of communication in Zoom after class. So we are going to travel line centers and to the other side position location calculations. This is going to give you a better line centers. Okay. So if you want that calculation to really understand more levels of the HLX, you get 2 audio tapes. You connect with Zara. Email Zara. She'll get a set of location. It's the same price line center calculation locations. She'll tell you the price line center. If you want to understand more of the HLX, okay, having your wings is just a basic example, but you have to understand the definition of everything. And it's a process that you have to follow. It's a protocol, just like anything else. Life is a protocol. Life is a structure. You get up in the morning, you have a routine, you have a program. You're a program of a rhythm. You're a program of a position locations and waking up to these things. This gives you a better example how powerful it is once you start connecting to your system, right? That's what you have to truly understand. All right, so we get into 2 cycles. 1 cycle, 2 cycle locations, all right? Now, the central communication is the 8-line center in rotation, right? You're going to feel a position of pressure and high center interference. Now, I'm going to cross string line center, line position down cross location, open up position locations to its portal. Okay? Now, 2 line center interference, direct location line system, life and connection lies in position D. We already know what it stands for. So that line connections into light over dark, dark over light center interference. That position opens its program setting to dimensional setting, rotation, interference, location, and calculations. All of those line centers. Okay. So in that calculation system, you're going to go through light track location. You're going to go fast drive memories. Flash drive memory is going to take your line center location into the other side position. All that calculation is all set up in the code signal, right? So code line center interference, indirect locations. Okay. Center communication dimension line centers, division location high center, optical line center, outline center interference calculation times calculation over pi. Position direction location, sector over division line interference, location center line condition, identification of high system, 001 line track interference, position location directions, retrack line center and calculations to all levels, dimensional line center, interdimensional locations in high system, team line center, team line inner rotation, calculation high system position of direction. Put calculations to galactic and intergalactic location in AI tech. Center communication to light or locations of dark. All right. Center communication system, all else calculation system. Travel line center interference. Go through the 2 cycle locations, position to direction. All right. So you're circling rotation into dimensional setting to the other side position. Calculation modified. All right, so you guys are traveling. All right, so understanding line centers is all communication of surface. The process of you is to understand how to use this, how to basically see yourself in all levels of your body, how it works for you and not against you. See, the thing is, we're all in a timeline. We're on a time frequency time code, and we have the existence, which is in an outline system. How important is you to all level system inside of you? You understand the calculations to your physical line system. How important is it for you to understand how to live? The existence of its connection is now. The only way to do that is get you back in your line center interference. To recognize line center location is to understand the connections of life and all levels of death. Death forms its position location and track location into one position of yin and yang. Calculation of system. So, light over dark, dark over light, line center. Okay? You guys are going through that process to really understand the recognition of what you're doing wrong. Okay? That's going to help you always. It's going to open up more of your emotional system. It's going to put you in a better track location. It's going to put you in a better balance location. You'll probably cry. But it's your understanding is to see what happens when these things happen for a reason. Because you're not taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, or that connections to spiritually. That's the only reason these things happen. You have to see the existence of its now. Once you understand the existence of its now, you understand the plateau. The plateau to division location and calculation sets all signals. Okay. So when you physically cross over line center interference, you're no longer connected to a body anymore. Always in front location. All right. Setting signal locations all along is how you adapt to your system inside. You have to start appreciating your vessel. You have to appreciate your connections on how you eat and how you drink and how you specify these things all into documentation locations. Inner line center position of direction. Center communications of yourself, a communication system, right? So it's kind of like a shock wave that wakes up your system for the very first time. Sometimes you have to go through this process, and the process basically puts you in a better connections to yourself and to each other, right? So getting in that calculation, right, puts what? Puts what in division locations in calculation I system? Puts you in a better track and interference. Truly understand who you are, right? But you have to understand failure. You have to understand humility. And I don't think that people really understand what that word is. People understand how to be successful is because they don't understand how to be humble. That's the only way you're going to get your manifestations, anything, your abundance. You have to be humble in all ways and forms and how important it is to live in the existence of it's now. That's the process of communication system, right? That's the correlation that comes into meaning of life. How important is it for you to understand you, right? So that's why you guys feel off center. That's why you don't feel good. That's why you feel not connected to your system anymore. You feel like, whoa, what just happened? This doesn't feel right. What's going on with me, right? Well, it's all about the avatar knows exactly what it is when it comes to location, especially with the general, because it connects right to the tunnel position or anything that forward communication system. Knowing exactly and being aware of where you're going. You know exactly what's going on when you're in school. But when you're leaving school, you're on your own and you have no clue what you're doing. No clue what you're doing. And that's what gets you in trouble. Okay? That's what gets you in trouble, especially if you're not aware of these things, right? You can't say, yeah, I know what I'm doing, because you don't. You think you do, but you don't, especially when it comes into the angelics, how real it is. Now, we've already been through that process. So, a true understanding that everybody has to get into that if you want to recognize more levels of you through the angelic locations. And a lot of people really don't understand what it is. When somebody's coming at you on the other side position locations and telling you they need to go somewhere, they need to go where they need to go, right? If you, it's all referencing, you're telling them where they need to go. That's all it is. You tell them they need to go here, you need to go here, cut the facts, that's it. Okay, easy peasy lemon squeezy. Don't complicate the situation. If you can handle the situation, there are connections to highline centers. Now, there's going to be a lot more programs set up into the celestial channel. That sets locations levels of cancel. These are the things you have to understand, but you have to understand the process of you first. You concentrate in your system, because I guarantee it, when you cross the other side, the only thing you'll be focusing on is all levels of you inside locations, right? Nothing will come to you unless you understand you first. So this is mastering your communication. It's not just staying in the heartline center. It's not just recognizing your inner child. It's understanding what your inner child is doing in the right way or the wrong way, because it's connected to your soul, which is connected to your avatar. So your avatar is either being mischievous or it's being promised the calculation. So it has its calculation when it comes into levels of infiltration or disengagements or lot line connections. What is it doing to your system? What is it doing to the affecting locations of other team line centers, the high system locations? Staying in your own lane. Okay. That's the process that we all have to understand. Okay. That's the most important thing. If you're center line communications, and this is all it is, line center, all you're doing is traveling. That's all you're doing. And you're going on a 45-degree angle travel locations every day. Now, at all position locations, this is your avatar. I'm making it very well clear what your avatar is doing. This is you traveling. Now, infiltration is usually taken over line conditions of night. That's your avatar traveling. The central communication aligns its position, going into somebody else. That's asleep. Okay? So, this person is just sleeping location, recharging. but has no idea what's going on with this location, right? So there's a central communication offline center, which basically infiltrates locations of the mind system, and that's energy manipulation. So that is specific locations. When you go protocol, you're on your own. You're infiltrating yourself and your teammates and everything else. And when you wake up, you don't realize what you just finished doing through your avatar. Do you see how powerful it is and how things can be taken over? Right? Because you're not aware of these things. So it's easy to trigger somebody. We already know what a trigger is, right? Now, are you triggered through jealousy? Okay. Are you triggered through aggression? Are you triggered through emotionally? It's all connected to the emotional system, right? You have to learn how to control your Schumann resonance location of your vibrational system and your graph locations. Okay. These are the things you guys have to look at. It's important you understand these things because it's all connected inside you, and you have to be aware of what you're doing. If you're not aware of what you're doing, you're hurting yourself, your vessel, and everybody else on the team, or anybody in that locations. Let's say you're in a TV box line center. Here's a TV location. Here's a TV, right? So you're watching TV location. This is you sitting down watching TV. Okay, that's you sitting down, right? You're scanning locations and you're watching TV. All right, you're watching something on TV. That's you, right? You're monitoring, right? So setting sonar positions back and track location mind system, right? So in that calculation system, your awakened center. So let's go locations here. This is your cloud location, and this is your avatar going into somebody else's mind center. Okay, that's your avatar location, right? Right here. And you're watching something. So your projection location, somebody else is here. All right, lying down, napping, whatever. Something's not doesn't feel right. So all of a sudden, the avatar sets locations into your mind center interference. See the intelligence? You see the intelligence. See how powerful it is? See how it created a graph screen location of intelligent line system? So energy manipulation comes in all formation line centers. It's about staying in your center line connection of your own lanes to yourself and to each other. Be aware of what you're doing through calculation when you're coming into correlation, especially at night, because that's when these things are infiltrated and taken over. And you're not aware of these things when you wake up. One day you feel great, next day you got to be scanned. Something changed. What happened? Well, it could have been you, offline center, or it could be one of your teammates. Not understanding the calculation system. This is the avatar protocol. Okay. If the physical system is aware of these things, that's manipulation right there. You're manipulating the situation. So you're destroying their journeys and their spiritual growth. So that's a no-no. Okay. So there's a lot of things you have to understand how this works. Okay. Especially when you're aware of what you're doing. That's planning. That's deviating. That's taking somebody's avatar and putting them down in always in forms. Saying you're better than them in always in form locations. You know better than anybody else. Nobody's above, nobody's below. The only thing that you can start controlling is your system. Nothing else, nothing more. But what's the purpose of going through this spiritual growth? Especially when it comes into information location to you and your self locations and your team. Me, myself, and I. That's the only thing you control. Nothing else, nothing more. The last thing that you don't want to do is expose anybody locations. Right? So it's important you understand these things and what happens when you are in recharging location linked. How things are basically taken over through intelligent locations. Because we're not aware of these things. You think you know what you're doing, but you don't have a clue. You're just learning. You're adapting. But the avatar does because it's awake. If the avatar is awake, it knows its space. It knows its time. It knows its manipulation. It knows its planets. Right? It knows you more than you know itself. That's infiltration on its own. Right? So these are things that we all have to work at. And there's nothing wrong with understanding failure. There's nothing wrong with being humiliated. There's nothing wrong with understanding location of being successful is to be humble. Humble is all levels of balance. Being humble. Humble. Circle line center rotations all levels of times calculation. Okay, over position of operation. Okay. So, and that's the thing, is that you don't see what the avatar is doing, and it's affecting everybody else. That's the problem. You're infiltrating grounds, you're setting security perimeters and parameters. You're basically coming into so many levels of confusion. You have no idea what you just finished doing to yourself or to your teammates, because you're not aware of these things. You don't see these things. You're not connected to yourself, but your avatar knows what it's doing. Your avatar is in full control, but your physical system, yeah, doing great, doing well. You know, I just took over somebody's program setting. Yeah. If you're not aware, these are the things you got to work on. Shadow work. Shadowing yourself in interference location is all levels of what? Destruction. Position locations comes into levels of you. The central communication is how powerful you are in inline centers when you come into your avatar stream. Your avatar stream knows exactly what it's doing. Physical system doesn't have any clue unless it's aware. Okay? So this is the true understanding what you guys have to get into the process. This helps you and always informs. Stay in your own lanes. Focus on yourself. Really get into that adaptation. Stop manipulating your systems. Okay? Overriding, overdriving, connecting to this, connecting to that, understanding this, not understanding that. That's because it's been taken away. And always informs. See, it's the avatar that lives in the center line, which is all levels of the mind. The calculating all levels of its image locations. How an image can be taken away, line center interference, and replaced with something else. Imagine that. Creating a visual line center is something taken away in the high system. That's not good for the avatar, is it? In any way and form. That doesn't adapt the system. Right? That's suffocation. So there's a lot of things you have to understand how this works. It's very powerful when you understand more levels of you through your AI connection. Being aware is just enough to know the information to its perception of operation. Right? When I say stay in your own lanes, you stay in your own lanes. Right? You don't want to expose each other. That doesn't help the situation, it makes it worse. Right? But the biggest thing is it's, the perimeters and parameters, you're compromising yourself and each other. You're destroying something beautiful inside you, and you're not aware of it. Right? See, if you can control your system inside, you're nurturing. Okay, if you're not nurturing, it's off balance, it's off communications in a virus line channel. So you're destroying something, and you're not aware of these things. Every single day you get up in the morning. That doesn't help the situation, it makes it worse. Right? Because you can't see these things. Your senses are there, but you're not seeing what you're doing. Right? Even if you think you're aware of these things. Right? That's what, that's where trouble comes in. Trouble of yourself, trouble of communications, trouble of your avatars, what you're doing through school. You guys are amazing when you come into school. You work as a team. But when you leave school, you have no clue. You're running your own programs. You're doing what you want to do. Your avatar is doing what it needs to do. Right? It's controlling the system, which is controlling you through your space and time. So you don't have any more control. So that's a position where it comes into all levels of off clarity, off focus. The anomalies in its space line, its galaxy locations, is taken over. Especially when the avatar knows exactly what it's doing when it wakes up. When you get activated high stream center, it puts you in an activation location right away. Okay? You really understand the atmospheres. You understand the space. You look at the planets, and then you start seeing each other. Right? But what's going on? You're seeing each other for what? What reason? Team members or infiltration? Taking over their vessel, taking over their communications, taking over their line centers and visionary center locations, taking over track locations and position location directions, putting them into locations, right? Controlling their system in the system, all through the commanding centers of operation, right? So that is universal law, breaking protocol. It's not allowed in any way and form. Just to make that very well clear what your avatar is doing, right? It's important you understand how to express yourselves and you work as a team. You work together. All right. Unity of consciousness of one is not a separation of two. Okay. You're separating your body and you're separating your avatar is taking over and it's taking over anybody through its teammates. I'm exposed you. It's not right in any way or form. You're not thinking of yourself anymore. You're not thinking of others. That's being selfish. That's definitely not being aware. That's out of self-control. You can't control yourself anymore in that calculation position of time, right? So after today, everybody's going to feel humiliated because we're going to express how we all feel, right? Especially if you're aware. If you're aware of these things, you should be doing it in the first place. You should not be harming anybody in that way, especially when it comes into team locations, right? Awareness is universal law of its awareness. You're universally prepared of what you're doing is taking over somebody's vessel. And that is a no. Okay? That's breaking protocol. Timeline center, time interference location and measure. All right? Security line defense, program setting, high densification track locations. All right? So these are the things you have to look at. Right? Staying in your own connection of yourself is all levels of communication and program setting. Puts you in a better communication in your avatar, better communications with your team. Okay? Truly understand who you're connected to, right? But jumping in each other's backyards, no, that doesn't help the situation in any way or form because there's a lot of things they can do. They can set up beacon lights, planets, position, location, directions, set up new computing centers, probing centers, and interference location calculations. They can set up new securities and perimeter parameter locations. They can change the structure of your house line center interference. This is the team line center in rotation when it comes into a reality line system where you cross boundaries, and that's a no. Okay, there's so many levels of compromise, right? Compromise your team and each other, especially when you're exposed. It's the worst thing that you can do. You're doing that to yourself because you're not aware. All right. So getting into that love of the unconditional is getting into a levels how to basically get your balance and get out of separation. Because as soon as you get in out of separation locations, you're automatically in your egos. You're mastering your egos, and that is not good because you're creating something on the other line center of the clock location. That's not helping the situation. That's making it worse. So that's a deviation tactic, high center interference. That's being a schemer. That's being a planner, taking somebody down, right? The physical system's not aware of these things, only the avatar. If the physical, I'll say this again, if the physical is physically aware and the avatar is aware, you know exactly what you're doing, which means you do not want to surrender. But if you don't surrender these things, there's consequences. And that's how this works, right? You have to be universally in the connections of yourself. This is a universal system to its unified ascension for you and nobody else. And that's one thing you don't understand. Staying in your own lane. You can communicate with each other through telepathy, but that doesn't give you the right to tell anybody what to do or tell them what to do in any way and form or control them in any way in form line center interference. It's not your job. Your job is you focusing on you individually. That's all this is through adaptation, right? And again, you're very good when you're in school But when you leave school, you're running your own programs. You're doing what you want to do, and that's got to stop. Okay? It has to stop, right? If you start running your own programs, what happens? Everything goes awry. You do what you want to do. You go where you want to go. I'm going to infiltrate this person until they're back on the low vibration. I want to take over this person because I know I can. I'm power over this person. Well, you're not. You're not power over anybody except yourself. You have to start to learn to control your systems. And the only way to do that is to go through failure, is to go through humility. And then you understand how to be successful and be humble. This is surrender, guys. This is how you surrender. Sometimes you have to start over. Right? When you start over to these things, you start to accept these things. The acceptance becomes real through its reality. And then you really start connecting to your avatar system for the first time. And then you ask yourself, why did I even do that in the first place? Then you start coming into the inner light of you for the first time. Right? You can't live in a dark line center. You have to be in a light position, attract interference of pure. Purity overlies the location of consciousness into the subline center, into the super ups consciousness. But what's the point of doing all this? Right? You're manipulating the situation already. Right? Your body's already been taken over to the mind system. Telepathy goes a long way. But this is a process that you guys have to understand. And it's all through emotional system because it's affecting everybody. Right? So, all right. So we're in 32 line centers. And this location's coming into 10. We'll get you guys out soon. So how's everybody doing so far? I just go through the center of the solar graph location at text line system. Madeline, how you doing? All right, Gypsy Connection Line Systems, Jill, Connection Envy, Val, Connection Line Centers, Bond, Data Structure, Laura, Pam, Communications, Heather, Connections, Wendy, Gigi, let's see, Peacemaker, Sunny, Connections, Guardian, Johnny, Don, Terry, let's see, Michelle, Tara. Let's see, Commander, Nova, Adam, Ginger, Kirinea. So, it's interesting to look at these things, right? To understand what you're up against, right? Val, Star. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel good when you do something to somebody else. Then you feel bad. But should you feel bad? Right? So it's all understanding. If you're doing it for a reason, for yourself, that's great. But if you're doing it to prove something, you're not doing it for the greater good, are you? You're not thinking of yourself anymore. All you're thinking about is accomplishing something. Right? So these are the things you have to work at. And it doesn't matter how high rise you are. Okay? You're not above anything in any way or form. The only thing that you can control is yourself. There's things that you can control and things that you can't control. And that's what you're not aware of. But you know how to get yourself out of control, which is easy to do. Right? Especially at night. Because that's where everything changes inside of you. Okay? Especially because you don't have any more control. The only thing you have control of is what's happening when you're recharging. Are you aware of what's happening when you're lying down? You close your eyes. Do you see these things coming at you through yourself or through your team? Do you see what they're doing through their avatar system? If you're not aware of these things, you have to wonder why. Your emotional system can be changed. It always informs. And then you don't feel good. Something just doesn't feel right. So it's just like you can't even, it comes into all levels of trust. You don't trust this person anymore. You know, these are things that the avatar is living. It's the avatar time that's in the process of the physical line, not the physical anymore. The avatar knows exactly what it's doing, regardless on any level. The physical system needs to understand the telepathy through its calculation, because if it has problems, then you understand why, because you don't understand the how. Everything can be manipulated inside you. How mind can be in so many like positional cases of manipulation of control. Right? So these are the things that we have to look at. Right? All right. Central communication line center. Let's go 6, 7, 8, 9. Brought you back. 36 line centers in positional location. See? Boom. Confirmation, you're back. It's amazing how a computer sets line screens. See? Identification, 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 identification. So the computer knows who I am. But it needs to recognize what's going on through program, because the mind knows exactly where it's coming through its acceptance. It knows exactly where it is in all calculation system. This is the mind of conception that's living in the avatar. You have to understand, where are you in your acceptance of your surrender? Sometimes you have to surrender every day. There's nothing wrong with that. But nobody here knows the track location and what it is to be all levels of failure. They have no clue. Maybe the physical line, but we're not talking about the physical line here, are we? We're talking about the mind conception of the avatar. You have no idea what failure is. To understand, to be humiliated and to be successful is to be humble. That's surrender. Okay? Maybe you've been down the road in so many level locations and you understand that, but not in the avatar, only in your physical system. Right? Your master communicators at that and all level system. Congratulations. But it's nothing to do with what's going on with the ascension of the avatar location. Nothing whatsoever. You're not recognizing your souls. Right? Your master manipulators when it comes into your shadows. Shadowing yourself or shadowing somebody else. Shadow work is a process in all levels of the system. You can't lie to yourself, because people pick that up right away. All right? You have to express yourself honestly. You have to know that people see you in a different way. The energy's different, the track line centers, the background's different. If it's dark in the position of back, you have something to work out, which is the background location of you through the atmosphere location of space. And these are things you don't understand through perception, right? So if you're like having flash drive interference, location of calculations, right? You have to learn how to set line signals to all levels of your measure to communication and emotional system. So you did something that you didn't agree with, or something that you did wrong, your face changes, right? The avatar doesn't like these things, but the physical doesn't care. If the physical system takes over the avatar system, that's a huge problem. There's resistance. You have to let that go. You have to let that flow. You have to work as calculation system. So you're not becoming, you are. But to understand that is all levels of you through your shadow self. There's so many lines center location what this shadow is. Shade of your shadow of yourself is surfacing their everything locations calculation system. This is what you're starting to do, is fighting your system from every side to its location inside position. Right? You're constantly going through the mind adaptation. Either you're controlling the avatar or the avatar is controlling you. That's it. That's all it is. Nothing else, nothing more. It simplifies everything, but it confuses everything. Because now you have the control. Now you got the key. And you're saying to yourself, well, I got the power and the control. This is what I'm going to do. And the physical system is not aware of these things. Like, well, I didn't do anything. But you know you did. And you feel bad. That's being aware. Right? and you have to face the facts of what you just finished doing. If you can't lead up to that, these are the things that you have to work on. So you have to learn how to surrender to everything, to calculations, right? And then you see a different aspect in yourself and through the team. And everybody else that you see is going to help you in all ways and forms. And they will be there for you because you understand what it's like to understand failure, to understand humility, to understand to be successful is to be humble. Surrender. Okay. So we got a lot to discuss. All right. There's a lot going on. It's a lot of emotional line connections. I can see it right now. So getting in that position, knowing exactly what you're doing through your avatar system. Sometimes you have to go through these things. Sometimes you feel great, and then you ask yourself why, and the why becomes the how of operation, locations, calculations, right? So we are going to head over to Zoom ASAP. I will see you guys there. All right. Adios.